Welcome everyone to our 10-minute tip time episode number 3. And today our 10-minute tip time is about 5 ways to overcome self-directed ageism. And you probably already know our show is sponsored by Platinum Pivot. It's a consortium of experienced professionals that share practical business content, and it helps other professionals navigate challenges. And I'm your host, Penny Redmond for Chura Marketing. And today I want to introduce you to our guest, who is Helen Hirsh Spence. Hi, Helen. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you, Penny.
Nice to see you as well. And Helen is the founder of Top 60 Over 60, which is a social enterprise that offers consulting and through thought leadership and training on age inclusion. And hello, Chrys. This is our interviewer. Hi, Chrys. How are you?
Hi. Good. I'm doing well, Penny. How are you?
I'm doing great. And Chrys is an educator and a project manager and designer who's redirected her skills towards championing the dynamics of the 50 over demographic. And so we're just going to hop right into this. So I'm going to let you guys lead on 5 ways to overcome the self-directed ageism.
Helen, it is such an honor to be here with you. I can't tell you how much I admire the Top 60 Over 60.
Thank you. That's very generous of you.
So how about we just jump right in? Can you tell us why it's important to overcome our own self-directed ageism and embrace our own age instead?
It's a great question. First of all, ageism is really pervasive in our society today. And what I mean by ageism is a bias against age. And it could be young or old, but I'll be talking about a bias against older people today rather than younger people, although they suffer as well from ageism. And when I speak about self-directed ageism, I'm really referring to that the ageism that we have internalized ourselves. So it's oriented and directed towards ourselves. And that's very damaging. It's damaging to our, and I'll say it over and over again, probably, to our potential, but we talk to ourselves negatively when we buy into the myth that in fact, certain truths exist about getting older. And therefore we see it rather negatively rather than positively.
That makes sense. What are some of these myths and stereotypes about aging that we find misleading?
Well, there are so many. Let me talk about the ones that have to do perhaps with the workplace, because so many older people today really want to continue to contribute meaningfully and productively, but they're not even in the mix for jobs today. So one of the reasons is because they think that everybody seems to think that boomers take the jobs away from younger people, and that's not true. It's the lump of labor fallacy. It's an economic term which means that there's a fixed number of jobs in our economy. But the reality is that when you give older people a job, they create jobs for other people. And therefore, in fact, they are increasing the number of other jobs that are available. So that isn't an accurate presumption at all. The other one is that there's an expiry date on productivity, but there is absolutely no correlation, according to research, between job performance and age. If anything, it demonstrates that older people tend to be even more productive. Another one has to do with entrepreneurship. We always see the Mark Zuckerberg quote that, anybody over 30 is not relevant anymore. And the reality is that the numbers show that between the ages of 55 and 64, we have the most successful entrepreneurs, and they are also the ones that are the most numerous. So that's a faulty idea as well. The other thing is, and this is really disturbing, is that older people are unable to learn or keep up. When in fact, we are experiencing now a generation of boomers who are the healthiest, most tech savvy, highly educated generation in history. So we do have the ability to learn, and the brain is constantly rewiring. So that's very misleading as well. And the other thing that is counterintuitive in a way, people always think that if you're older, you're going to take more time off. But in fact, older employees take less time off. They're far more loyal and committed to their jobs. So therefore, they are a good investment. So it's all the contrary to what one thinks. So those are just a couple of the ideas that surround, getting older, and that make people not feel as confident as they probably should when they want to re-enter the workforce.
I know they resonate with me. I'm sure they resonate with a lot of people out there. So what do you recommend to those of us who are not truly embracing our aging?
Well, first and foremost, I think you really want to recognize your own bias. So, and it's unconscious. But if you've ever had a thought when you looked at somebody and saw them with a haircut and thought to yourself, ooh, I don't think that's an age-appropriate haircut or a dress, there's a subtle indication that, in fact, you may be biased against yourself.
Right.
It's really important to change your mindset. To overcome self-directed ageism, you need to be confident. In order to do that, you need to be optimistic, positive. And there's so much research that shows that when you think positively, when you're grateful, when you're happier and you see the glass half full as opposed to half empty, you will, in fact, feel better and be more confident. That you really need to, the stereotypes that we all grew up with, this is another way of overcoming, self-directed ageism. And that has to do with, growing up thinking that grandfathers sat on the porch and smoked their pipes and grandma sat in the rocking chair next to him knitting. Well, those are the good old days, but retirement is really a notion of the past. With our longer lifespan, it's really critical that we keep active longer. And that's necessary not only for us, because for financial reasons, if we're going to live 10, 15 years longer, which is what we are looking at the current time. In fact, there are many books out now called the 100-year lifespan. So it's important to contribute not only financially, but not to become a burden to anyone. And then another way of thinking about aging is to realize that it's just a chronological number. It doesn't reflect anything more than that. We tend to think about age as a physical thing only, and it's true. There's no question about it. It's like an older bicycle. Parts are going to break down. You can't do anything about that, but you can change your attitude. And interestingly, from research that we've done at Top 60, we found that on average, people tend to consider themselves 20 years younger than they actually are. And when you ask them, what do they consider as old? They say always the number that's 20 years older than them. So if you don't feel old, there's no reason why you should think that you're old. So you've got to help yourself in that way. Another thing that's critical is having friends across the generations. So, I come from an educational background. I spent my life with young people and with staff. And as I got older, I was getting older than they were, but they became constants in my life in different ways. And it was very meaningful because it kept me grounded, kept me in touch, and was very, very helpful. It's also good to know people who are older than you. And so you can judge, if you think of the 5 people who mean the most to you in life, think of what their ages are, and then make a point of exploring friendships in other generations. That's also helpful. And probably one of the most important ways in which you can overcome any kind of internalized ageism or self-directed ageism is to become aware of what your meaning is in life, or having a purpose. So they say that not having a purpose in life is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It shortens your life by 7 years. So it's really, really important that there's a reason to get up in the morning. And I'm talking in particular about people who may retire or are thinking about retirement. The rule has been, or what we've seen, is that after 2 years, a lot of people really want to go back to work.
Right.
And it's really much harder for them to do that at this point. So,
So speaking about work, because that's going to be a very timely thing coming out of the pandemic, what do you think employers need to know about older workers and employees?
yeah. Well, you know what? I think that it's going to be the older workers that they either hire, rehire, or retain that are going to help move businesses out of the pandemic that much more quickly. It's been proven time and time again that experience, which can only be lived, trumps knowledge and skill. The other thing is that you're with the commitment and loyalty and experience of older workers. And I am not suggesting for a moment you shouldn't hire younger people. I'm always talking about that balance, that intergenerational mix or multi-generational mix, which is so important. You need all generations in the mix, but don't deny access to jobs to older people because of all of the stereotypes and the misconceptions that we tend to have about older people. So I think that's one of the critical points that we have to know and help people understand, is that experience means a lot. Take a look at this pandemic. Who did we call back? We call back our older medical professionals. They were the ones who were reassuring. They were the ones we valued. So if that's the case during a crisis, why are those people, same people, not just medical professionals, why are they being devalued or underestimated? Their potential is just as great without having a crisis in mind. So we really need to change the whole narrative about aging. And one of the most important ways is to start with oneself and to overcome that self-directed ageist belief that we unconsciously tend to have. So.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm going to use your quote about how you said knowledge trumps, what did you say? Knowledge trumps?
Experience
Trumps.
Knowledge and skill.
I love it. I love it. So
Yeah.
I don't know, Helen, I heard probably about 10 different ways of overcoming self-directed ageism, but I know there's 5 really, really key ones that were really part of it, really important. So as for listeners, I want to thank them for hearing another one of our episodes for a 10-minute tip time. And if you could all do us a favor by just pressing a thumbs up for us after you've watched this. And as well as, can you click on the bell, because the bell is great. It'll just notify you when we've got another new video coming up. And in speaking of another new video, I know our next video is about how to reforecast personal goals in 2020. And because of COVID-19, it has really kind of upset all our goals. So we have one of our Platinum Pivot members are going to be coming on, Cheryl Lewis and Thurp. And she's going to talk about that topic. So do tune in for the next episode. And again, thanks, Helen. Thanks, Chrys.
Thank you. And remember how valuable you are, Penny and Chrys, no matter what anybody else says, okay?
Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.